All gas, no truth. An anthropological lens provides clarity in the post-truth era. Post-truth. Relating to or denoting circumstances in which objective facts are less influential in shaping public opinion than appeals to emotion and personal belief. This was Oxford's Word of the Year for 2016. The United States is and has been in this new era for years now. There are deep rifts between people, parties, and institutions. There's distrust in media and overwhelming influence from various powers that all vie for our valuable attention. As trust in information wanes, alternative voices are rising to fill the void. Hunter S. Thompson first rose to prominence in 1967 after his first book, Hell's Angels, in which he documented his time living with a notorious motorcycle gang. His first-person accounts and anthropological observations were steeped in texture and unchained attitude that he coined as gonzo journalism. These forays revealed the seedy underbellies of cities, politics, and the countercultures of his day. Gonzo paved the way for alternate forms of journalism that defined truth as a personal and intuitive state of being, rather than one that favored facts and intellectual argument. However, Thompson employed an ethnographic approach which gave him his particular insight and voice, but traditional news media, taking note of his newfound attention, largely took a shortcut to skip the long-form ethnographic study and headed straight to more opinion-based reporting and unfettered bias that resonated with audiences. Thus, Thompson, unwittingly, helped open the door for subjectivity in news, but in so doing, news organizations have also damaged general trust in media establishments because it has become more difficult to discern what is factual news versus subjective spin. Here we can see Americans' trust in mass media is the lowest since 2016. Not only has trust in media been steadily declining, but there's been a significant shift and discrepancy since the Trump era. This should not be particularly news to anyone paying attention, but the difference when considering political affiliation is stark and sudden. This loss of trust in America's fourth estate of democracy has led to a heightened presence of conspiratorial thinking, outside intervention, and many people left looking to find information from independent channels and opinion-based coverage, furthering the divides of popular opinion and the basis for common facts in this country. Amidst this information vacuum, there is a legitimate need for trustworthy information that will present the American story in a way that is accessible to both sides of the divide, especially young people who are ever more disillusioned, as was the case in Hunter S. Thompson's era. Enter Andrew Callaghan.
I don't even know what all gas, no brakes is. I seriously have no idea. I hope you put this in.
The whole economy got fucked up because of this shit, dude.
Trump might be right about Mexicans, that's all.
I would rather die than wear a mask.
Yeah, maybe you could introduce me as Andrew Callaghan, young creative with his finger on the pulse, 3.4 GPA multimedia journalist, interested in creating anthropological road-based study of American oddity. All gas, no brakes.
White Claw! Independence Day!
Adolf Hitler, they have reincarnated him.
I never thought the show would be this big. I never thought that I would be recognized in public, but I want to be able to do different things. I want to be able to make strictly comedic shit.
You hear that?
And actually do real reporting at the same time.
This is how people are actually feeling. Everyone feel like that.
I just want to show people how crazy things actually are.
In a few short years, Callaghan has amassed a large and loyal following on YouTube. His original channel was called All Gas, No Brakes. But after falling out with his production company when his videos took a more serious tone, he started again as the fully independent Channel 5 News. His videos have a combined total of over 150 million views, and his current number of subscribers has surpassed what he previously had as All Gas, No Brakes. Callaghan's content has always orbited fringe society and American subcultures, and Callaghan admits that it was previously more centered on humor at expense of the subject, But as the channel has evolved, it has become more balanced in its approach and has tackled major current topics such as COVID-19, the U.S. political divide, police brutality, gun rights, and the war in Ukraine. Owing to its increased sense of journalistic purpose, Callaghan and crew were present at a recent Black Lives Matter protest, the NRA conference in Uvalde, Kiev in Ukraine, and they've had key interviews with Jake Angeli, otherwise known as the Q Shaman, who was residing in prison, and Lucien Greaves, the co-founder and spokesperson of the Satanic Temple. Beyond these highlights of providing insight into national current debates, Channel 5 has continued to explore fringe society with deep dives into how people live and present themselves on the outskirts within their self-contained culture bubbles. Here I've compiled a list of all of Callaghan's current videos to help give an idea of common categories and subject matter. It's color-coded to denote the source, so Channel 5 represents the most recent work in red. What's special about Channel 5 is that their genuine anthropological approach provides credibility to their reporting, as it did for Hunter S. Thompson. An equal voice and opportunity is given to everyone, whether they are ideological figureheads or drunk fools on the street. The juxtaposition of so many subcultures and non-judgmental interview approaches allows the viewer to assess content on its own terms. Even if viewers may not agree with the perspectives, the entertaining editing and subject matter makes it both palatable and understandable to listen to other viewpoints within the context of their respective environments. It is this blend of open naivete and humor that draws in audiences from all sides.
When over 1 million people follow you, that's every kind of person. You have like Boogaloo Boys and Proud Boys and like anarchists following you at the same time and all laughing at your shit. I have to show what's going on.
A fundamental question shared by both journalist and anthropologist is inquiry into the why, how, and when. One notable focus of the anthropological approach is that it then uses supplemental observation to make these cultural practices understandable. Let's take a closer look at Callaghan's approach as he interviews the subjects. Additional commentaries provided by Colin and Samir, interviewers who specialize in online content creators.
By the end of the video, you get to this point where you're like, I laughed, I kind of learned. Like there's so many emotions that you go through watching his videos, just watching other human beings.
The editing is very intentional. It is edited in a way where it should be entertaining. They're doing crash zooms, there's sound effects.
Well, you're f***ing because this is Talladega.
And even the placement of the interviews are really intentional. You'll get someone who's very conservative next to someone who's very liberal. And so what you're getting is entertainment, and then you get to come up with your own opinion. And you see in the comments, that's what people love about his work. Whereas the news right now is opinion as entertainment. And I think that's what people have been fed up with. I come for the news and all I'm getting is opinion.
With Andrew, he's showing us real life in a way that I can connect with. And a lot of news anchors are not doing that. They're treating it truly as like show business.
Now that we have a firm basis in who Callaghan is and his interview style, let's examine how he employs various anthropological ideas in his approach. Cultural relativity. Callaghan's neutral stance allows him and encourages the viewer to maintain a sense of cultural relativity. While some people do take the presence of a camera as permission to go nuts in the attempt to be viral, Callaghan's neutral reserve allows space to document even this phenomenon as a symptom of our overall culture. He is just as present for wild acts as he is asking an opinion of a quiet onlooker. It is this relativity and respect that lets truth emerge organically. Ethics. Some important ethical concepts for anthropologists are doing no harm, obtaining informed consent, and maintaining subjects' anonymity. Anonymity and consent are covered through recording releases, which are essential to any work like this, and those who do not want to participate are either removed or blurred. Callaghan largely centers on thoughts and ideas rather than personas and identity, so names are not normally presented unless they are central figures. Also, unlike most journalists, Callaghan does not try to aggressively corner people or to try to get them to admit anything that they might be uncomfortable with. Rather, he provides a safe and open space that allows people to share what they might want to share. Reflexivity. While Callaghan provides a neutral space during his interviews, he does not make any false claims about his own personal convictions and presents his general approach clearly and honestly. According to Brown et al., anthropological engagement is not always benevolent or neutral. In this way, Channel 5 straddles the line between civil engagement with purpose, which for Callaghan can mean highlighting issues such as gentrification, and finding the human element in misunderstood communities, and also allowing recorded moments to exist as they are, absent of his own direct commentary. Let's take another look at how Callaghan uses these ethnographic principles to create a special breed of entertaining yet honest representations of people, events, and cultures.
I just play up the naiveness. That's the only element in which like the all gas guy is a character. Because it really is just me, but I play up the naiveness. Obviously, I've seen a lot of shit, and I know the answers to a lot of the questions that I'm asking. But it's a thing that Louis Theroux did a lot. It's kind of like when Louis Theroux would go to like mega churches, like Westboro Baptist Church, he would say, are you in support of gay marriage? You know the answer, but you want to have that dialogue so the audience can consume it firsthand, because not everybody knows certain things. So the only way that the all gas dude is a character is just asking basic questions that he already knows the answer to.
For a guy with the funny mustache about yay tall, he realized that the flat earth model was correct and went to seize the gate of the South in what we call New Berlin, Antarctica.
And we don't bait people with any questions. What we do is we remain neutral, which causes people to say insane shit. I don't know why they say crazy shit. I don't say anything. I just stand there with the microphone. I'll be like, I'll look at the camera and they keep going and going.
Let's look at a few more concepts. Ethnography. While much of Callaghan's work is informal, he has also done deep dives into the lives of interesting characters that he meets. This can involve talking with others from their community and gathering bits and pieces of their life history to help understand the factors that shape a person throughout their life. Sometimes when engaging in risky or challenging environments, he will rely on key informants to help guide his observations and take him deeper into a particular subculture. Emic and etic perspectives. Due to Callaghan's reflexivity, viewers are made aware of his personal stance and familiarity with certain cultures. Through his neutral approach, those who he interviews may not be aware of these aspects, and so they can view the interaction with a particular lens. Belying his non-stereotypical dress, when Callaghan engages with people in various forms of street and rap culture, he is participating from an emic standpoint. When he engages with far-right, conspiracy-oriented, or niche cultures like Bigfoot hunters, he is participating from an etic standpoint. Polyvocality. In regards to voices represented, there are many. It frankly would be difficult to find a comparable source with such a wide range of American subcultures and people represented. Callaghan practices what he calls radical listening, and that approach makes everyone a potential subject. The use of polyvocality also buffers the work from claims that it is any kind of ultimate ethnographic authority. It could also be argued that it is this inclusion of polyvocality and letting people speak for themselves that sets him apart from predecessors such as Hunter S. Thompson. Thompson's voice was his own, and his alone. Next, let's examine a clip from Callaghan's recent reporting in Kiev, Ukraine.
How are you doing today?
I really want to go home, but I think it won't be safe for my daughter, so we will stay somewhere here and just wait.
He brings out the human element. It really does feel like the modernization of journalism in a way that we want it, which is let us observe. Let us observe other people, and then let us formulate our own opinions.
When asked about the current state of mass media, Callaghan says, "Media is failing. Why would you rely on a printed narrative for something that you could have filmed?" He is not the only one with this opinion, and the attitude is not entirely new. Bradley Garrett of The Guardian wrote in 2015, in response to chaos of the day, quote, We need to embolden new ethnographers and long-form journalists in those communities to pen stories from the inside out. Understanding the nuances of city stories and tracing those tensions requires immersion and patience. Whether we are writing about police work, protests, squatting, free parties, banking, or parkour, the best socially engaged journalism, like the best university research, is rooted in participation, spiked with empathy, and resists being reduced to spectacle fodder. End quote. Amidst the crunch of globalized pace, Garrett notes that the lines are blurring. Quote, just as the boundaries between academic disciplines are breaking down, so too is the brittle boundary between research and journalism. End quote. Let's take a look at Callaghan's key coverage of the Minneapolis protests during the Black Lives Matter movement in 2021, and think about how his messaging contrasts with those present in mass media channels.
One video that really stuck out to me from his recently is from the protests in Minneapolis after George Floyd was killed. This like visual of him on the ground with these people and the way they're talking to him.
We tried peaceful protesting. We tried in every different direction, and this was our last resort.
Everyone feel like that. Everybody feel like that. That's all I gotta say.
And you're getting a real pulse of what's going on the ground. There's even a moment in that episode where he's just walking through the store that was just burned and was looted. He doesn't say anything. He's just letting the camera walk through it and experience it. And in that moment, for me, I felt like, whoa, I'm actually getting placed in this environment. I'm actually getting a feel for what this is like. And he's not saying if he agrees with it or doesn't agree with it. There's actually a ton of different opinions in that piece about what's going on.
Fuck those other media outlets, because they're gonna try to portray us in a bad light by only showing what's going on over here. At the end of the day,
we are heard. This is the only way we are heard.
It doesn't really make sense to me, to be honest.
I think there's a right way to protest, and that's peacefully.
Complete police reform. This is our future we stand up for. We making history right now.
And in his videos, he sometimes will show the traditional news camera and how far they are from the actual people who are being talked about.
Are you guys allowed to interview people?
Yeah, we are.
Person?
Yeah. Sorry, we're about to go on air here, so I gotta.
You ever see me with no suit on, with like a black sweatshirt like this, it means that I'm not there to make jokes. It wasn't so much of me being like, oh, let me get political because, I want to get more of a liberal audience. It was like, media is not covering this. Media is not talking to the people causing destruction in Minneapolis and figuring out why.
This brings us back full circle to Hunter S. Thompson. Andrew Callaghan and his work at Channel 5 has provided a model for how to use an anthropological perspective in modern media. By presenting real people with all of their quirks, spirit, and opinions, a fresh form of authenticity can be found in a world that desperately calls for it. Humor is present as an aspect of Callaghan's reflexivity, but it is also like the sugar that helps us swallow the bitter realities that are present in a society that clearly seems to be in a major transition, if not decay. When asked about what causes people to fall down into rabbit holes and get stuck into pits of disinformation, Callaghan says, personal trauma. I think that becoming conspiratorial is almost therapeutic for someone who has been done dirty, because they're like, all the cards are stacked against us. Real Americans, real good people, and there's a cabal of people who are demonic and they're fucking us over. I also think it probably has a lot to do with entitlement. A lot of these people, they're boomers. They grew up in a different time and were promised a different future than exists now. They came up in the Leave It to Beaver, white America, and they thought they were going to grow up and have some class mobility. A lot of these people haven't been able to build wealth. The American dream didn't work out for them, so they have to think things are getting worse. End quote. Hunter S. Thompson, who is speaking to that same generation, was determined to turn America's liabilities into assets. He said, quote, I'm not going to do what everyone else is doing. I'm going to write about what I see present the unvarnished truth as I understand it. End quote. In order to find the way out from a darkened world, he viewed pure objectivity as an enemy. In a 1994 obituary of Richard Nixon, Thompson wrote this in Rolling Stone magazine. Quote, "Some people will say that words like scum and rotten are wrong for objective journalism, which is true, but they miss the point. It was the built-in blind spots of the objective rules and dogma that allowed Nixon to slither into the White House in the first place. You had to get subjective to see Nixon clearly, and the shock of recognition was often painful." End quote. It is this subjectivity that Callaghan has captured for the modern audience. But rather than dwell in long-form deconstruction of the evils of the world in prose, Callaghan lets his camera do the talking.
I hate when people say they come away from the videos like all nihilistic and bummed out on the country. They're like, wow, everyone's crazy. We're in this giant culture war. We're all fucked. I just want people to feel like there's like humor in darkness, because we're in like a really bad time. I just want to show people how crazy things actually are in a really objective way that's like quick and easy to digest and pretty funny, because you learn better when you're laughing at stuff.